The Strait of Hormuz, just 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, has gone dark. Since February 28, 2026, when the United States and Israel launched joint strikes on Iran that killed Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and devastated military sites across Tehran, Isfahan, and Kermanshah, Iran has retaliated with a scale and ferocity that is reshaping the map of global energy. The IRGC declared the strait closed. Tanker traffic collapsed by 70% within hours. Then it dropped to effectively zero. Over 150 ships now sit anchored in the Gulf of Oman, loaded with crude they cannot deliver. And in the Indian Ocean, an American destroyer sits burning after being struck by Iranian ballistic and cruise missiles, the first time a U.S. warship has been hit by an enemy state in decades. How did a joint military operation meant to neutralize Iran's nuclear and missile capabilities spiral into a full-spectrum regional war? Why is 1/5 of the world's oil supply now held hostage by a 21-mile-wide stretch of water? And what happens to the global economy if this goes on for weeks or months? Before we break down what happened and what it means for global energy, your gas prices, and the broader conflict, hit that subscribe button. This situation is evolving by the hour, and the economic and military consequences are going to affect every country on Earth. Staying informed right now matters more than ever. On the morning of February 28, the United States and Israel launched what the Pentagon designated Operation Epic Fury, a coordinated air and missile campaign targeting Iran's military infrastructure, nuclear facilities, and senior government leadership. According to the Pentagon, the operation struck sites in Tehran, Isfahan, Qom, Karaj, and Kermanshah. The opening salvo destroyed the compound of Iran's supreme leader, killing Ali Khamenei. The Israeli Air Force struck the Islamic Republic of Iran broadcasting headquarters, the Parliament building, and the Assembly of Experts building, the body responsible for selecting Khamenei's successor. U.S. officials offered multiple justifications for the strikes: an imminent Iranian threat, the goal of destroying Iran's missile capabilities, preventing nuclear weapons development, and, according to some officials, ultimately achieving regime change. Iran rejected all claims of an imminent threat. A diplomatic breakthrough had reportedly been reached in Oman just the day before, with Iran's foreign minister agreeing to nuclear verification measures. That deal evaporated with the first missiles. Within hours of the strikes, Iran launched hundreds of ballistic missiles and drones at U.S. military installations across the region, hitting bases in Qatar, Bahrain, the UAE, Kuwait, Iraq, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey. Britain's Akrotiri base on Cyprus was struck by a drone. Iranian missiles hit Dubai International Airport, one of the world's busiest, forcing it to halt all flights. The Ras Tanura oil refinery in Saudi Arabia, a critical export terminal processing 550,000 barrels per day, was temporarily shut down after a drone attack. 6 American service members have been killed in Iranian retaliatory strikes, according to the Pentagon. Iranian state media has reported over 940 people killed by U.S. and Israeli strikes. The U.S. reportedly used double-tap airstrikes to maximize casualties, according to Iranian government claims. The United Nations and several uninvolved countries condemned the initial U.S.-Israeli strikes. Others condemned Iran's retaliatory attacks on Gulf states. But the most consequential Iranian response may not be the missiles. It is what happened in the Strait of Hormuz. Within hours of the strikes, the IRGC broadcast warnings on international maritime radio frequencies that no ships would be permitted to pass. Vessel tracking data showed traffic plunging immediately. On March 1st, the oil tanker Skylight was struck by a projectile north of Kasab, Oman, killing 2 Indian crew members. The MKD Vyom was hit by a drone boat, sparking fires and an explosion. Another Indian sailor was killed on the LCT Aya. On March 2nd, a senior IRGC commander officially confirmed the strait was closed, threatening to set ablaze any vessel that attempted to transit. Major shipping companies, Maersk, CMA CGM, Hapag-Lloyd, all suspended transits. Insurance companies withdrew coverage. Even without a formal legal blockade, the strait was effectively sealed.
According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, approximately 20 million barrels of oil per day normally flow through this passage, roughly 20% of global seaborne crude trade. Nearly all of it goes to Asia: China, India, Japan, South Korea. 1/5 of the world's liquefied natural gas exports, primarily from Qatar, also transit the strait. Qatar halted LNG production entirely after an Iranian drone struck nearby facilities. European natural gas prices surged 63% in a single week, the largest spike since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Brent crude, which had been trading in the mid-60s before the strikes, briefly surpassed $100 per barrel on March 8th for the first time in 4 years. As of March 9th, some analysts are pricing scenarios above $120. The U.S. national average gas price has already begun climbing. Then came the incident that has dominated headlines worldwide. On March 4, a U.S. Navy submarine torpedoed the Iranian frigate Iris Dina in international waters off the coast of Sri Lanka, more than 2,000 miles from Iran's borders. The ship had been returning from joint naval exercises hosted by India. According to Sri Lankan officials, over 80 Iranian sailors were killed, more than 30 rescued, and the rest remain unaccounted for. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth described it as a demonstration of American global reach, calling it a quiet death. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs noted it was the first time a U.S. torpedo had sunk a ship since World War II. Iran's response was immediate. The IRGC announced it had struck a U.S. destroyer with Ghadr 380 ballistic missiles and Talieh cruise missiles, while the warship was refueling from a tanker in the Arabian Sea, more than 600 kilometers from Iranian territory. The IRGC claimed the strike triggered widespread fires aboard both vessels. As of this recording, satellite imagery shows signs of fire on a U.S. Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, but the images remain low resolution, and the Pentagon has not confirmed or denied the strike. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi called the torpedoing of the Iris Dina an atrocity at sea, and warned that the United States will come to bitterly regret the precedent it has set. The ripple effects are staggering. Pakistan has officially requested that Saudi Arabia reroute oil shipments through the Red Sea port of Yanbu to bypass the closed strait. Japanese refiners, who receive about 95% of their crude from Gulf producers, have asked their government to release strategic oil stockpiles. China, the world's largest crude importer and Iran's biggest oil customer, faces major supply disruption, though analysts say its stockpiles provide some buffer. India, which gets more than half its LNG imports and 60% of its oil from the Gulf, faces what analysts describe as a dual physical and financial shock. South Korea, Thailand, and Bangladesh are among the most vulnerable economies. Meanwhile, Russia stands to benefit enormously. With Gulf barrels disrupted, both India and China have strong incentives to deepen their reliance on Russian crude, potentially undermining years of Western sanctions pressure. On March 5th, the IRGC announced a partial softening. The strait would remain closed to U.S., Israeli, and Western allied shipping, but Chinese and some Muslim-flagged vessels would be permitted through. A Chinese-operated bulk carrier broadcasting "China owner" transited successfully. A Turkish-operated tanker also passed. This selective enforcement has drawn comparisons to Cold War-era naval blockades and has raised questions about whether the global energy system is fracturing along geopolitical lines. Diplomatic efforts are intensifying. French President Emmanuel Macron has proposed a naval escort mission led by the aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle. G7 finance ministers and the International Energy Agency are in emergency talks about coordinating the largest strategic petroleum reserve release in history. President Trump said on March 9 that the war is very complete, pretty much, and that Iran better not try anything cute, or it will be the end of that country. He offered U.S. government political risk insurance to tankers willing to enter the Persian Gulf and said the Navy could escort ships through the strait if needed. Houthi-controlled Yemen has announced readiness to resume attacks on commercial shipping in the Red Sea, though as of March 10, they have not yet acted. Hezbollah has opened a front from Lebanon, firing rockets and missiles at Israel, prompting a ground incursion by Israeli forces. Some reports on March 10th suggest a diplomatic breakthrough. A memorandum of maritime stability brokered by neutral regional powers may partially reopen shipping lanes, with Brent crude falling from its highs to around $88 to $92 per barrel. But analysts caution this could be temporary. The underlying conflict is not resolved. Iran's supreme leader is dead. His successor has not been selected. The IRGC still controls the strait. American and Iranian forces are still trading strikes across a theater stretching from Beirut to the Indian Ocean. The U.S. cost of operations is estimated at between $890 million and roughly $1 billion per day. What is unfolding in the Middle East right now is not a contained military operation. It is a conflict that has simultaneously disrupted the world's most critical energy choke point, killed hundreds of people across multiple countries, sunk warships, closed airports, and sent global markets into their most volatile period since 2022. The question is not whether this will affect you. It already is. At the gas pump, in energy bills, in flight disruptions, in the prices of everything that moves by sea. The question is how long it lasts, and whether diplomacy can outpace escalation. As of March 10, that remains an open question.